Your kid just stopped coughing, and here comes round 2. Sound familiar? You're not doing anything wrong and you are not alone. In fact, this video is one of the most common frustrations of parenting, the revolving door of childhood viruses. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Mona Amin, a board-certified pediatrician and mom of 2, who both have also been sick. And on this channel, I give you science-based parenting advice you can actually use in your real life. Today, I'm breaking down why the constant sickness happens, what's actually normal, when it's worth a closer look, and the real ways you can reduce illness at home without falling for overpriced immune boosters. And if you like having clear, practical answers to the questions that keep you up at night, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my future videos. Let's get into it. Let's start with the big question. Why does it seem like kids are constantly sick once they start daycare or school? It's not bad luck, and it's not because you're doing something wrong. The real reason is that their immune systems are still in training. When babies are born, they get some temporary protection from mom, but that fades around 6 months. From then on, their immune system has to build its own library of defenses and memory, one virus at a time. And once they start crawling, touching everything, putting their hands in their mouths, and then join the germ-sharing paradise of daycare or school, it's game on. Classrooms, playgrounds, lunch tables, play gyms, these are basically social clubs for germs. For preschoolers, getting 8 to 12 viral illnesses in a year is very normal. Add siblings into the mix as extra germ messengers, and the number can look even higher. It feels like a lot, but it's not a sign you need to bubble wrap your child or move into a germ-free bunker. Here's why it can feel like your child is always sick. When their body is busy fighting off one illness, their defenses are stretched thin. That means if a brand new virus comes along, and many viruses are circulating at the same time, it can sneak in before the first one is even fully gone. Think of it like your immune system running 2 battles at once. It's possible, but it takes a lot of energy, and symptoms can often linger or overlap. Here's the extra science. Fighting one virus can temporarily lower defenses because the immune system is distracted and airway tissue is inflamed, making it easier for another germ to sneak in. Kids can actually carry more than one virus at a time, and studies show that it's common to test positive for 2 viruses in one illness. That's why colds can feel never-ending. And post-illness inflammation can keep kids coughing for weeks even when they're no longer technically contagious, which is why it feels like they never fully get better. One illness, fever, cough, runny nose, cough lingers, another virus on top of it, and then the cycle repeats, and it can feel never-ending. And remember, germs are equal opportunity. Even the healthiest eater, best sleeper, and most outdoorsy kid will still get sick a lot. Lifestyle helps with the recovery, but it doesn't create a germ shield, especially when these viruses are new to a kid, and especially contagious things like common cold viruses. And here's the kicker. Just because your child had a cold last month doesn't mean they're in the clear for a while. There are hundreds of different viruses out there and different strains of the same virus, so catching one doesn't protect them from the next. And if you're nodding along because this sounds exactly like your household, this is a good time to subscribe so you can catch my upcoming videos on specific illnesses and how to get through them with a little less stress. So how do you tell the difference between normal kids sick and okay, maybe we should check this out? Frequent colds, stomach bugs, or mild fevers are just part of the normal kid package, especially in the first year of group care or in those fall and spring months when the weather is changing. If your child is growing well and hitting their developmental milestones from well visit to well visit, that's your green light. But if you start noticing patterns like poor growth or weight loss over time, big gaps in school attendance because they're always down for the count, getting sick repetitively and never ever bouncing back completely, or multiple severe bacterial infections, things like pneumonia, ear infections that need antibiotics, or repeated sinus infections, that's worth bringing up to your clinician. Another sign to pay attention to is fatigue that hangs around long after the illness is over. True immune deficiencies are rare, but if your gut is waving a little red flag, trust it and start that conversation with a doctor. Most times than not, it's just germ-fest season and their body is being exposed over and over. If everything checks out and your child is otherwise healthy, know that most kids start catching up after 1 to 2 years in daycare or school. Those back-to-back illnesses usually space out over time. It won't always feel like you're living in a tissue commercial. My son started group childcare at 13 months, right in the middle of the pandemic, but everything was still shut down. He stayed healthy for months, and I was like, this is great. But once things opened up and people started mingling again, the viruses came roaring back. Suddenly, he was sick every 1 to 2 weeks, and it was exhausting. I remember crying, not because he was sick, but because of how helpless it felt. As a parent, and especially as a working parent, that constant cycle can also really wear you down. I've been there, and I see it in my office all the time with my patients. Kids will always be exposed to germs just like adults, but the difference is how their bodies respond over time. In the early years, every new virus is like a first-time introduction, and their immune system has to work harder to learn and respond. That's why illnesses seem so constant in daycare and preschool. But by the time the kids get to kindergarten, things usually start to ease up for 2 big reasons. One, a developing immune system. After a few years of exposures, their immune library is bigger. That means when they run into a virus they've seen before, or even one that's similar, their body can fight it off faster, sometimes with barely any symptoms. And number 2, better hand hygiene. School routines and maturity help. Kids learn to wash their hands more consistently and keep their hands out of their mouths, well, most of the time, which cuts down on how often germs win. So really keep encouraging that hand washing in between the fingers, underneath the fingernails, because it does really help. So illness never really disappears. I mean, adults get sick too, but it can space out. Instead of being sick every 1 to 2 weeks, it might be every couple of months and often less severe. But then you add in more siblings, which can be more germ vectors, bringing home the fun. Remember to scroll through my channel for more tips on childhood illnesses. My goal is always to save you some sanity and maybe even a copay. Now let's talk about the things you can control, the everyday habits that actually make a dent in how often your kids get sick. Think of these like giving your child's immune system a little home field advantage. First up, hand washing is the MVP. Before meals, after school, after bathroom breaks, after the playground, basically anytime their hands have been near other kids, pets, or mystery sticky substances, it's time for soap and water. Get between the fingers, under the nails, and scrub for a solid 20 seconds. And really, don't forget fingernails. Germs love to hide there. I learned this the hard way as a nail-biting high schooler. Hello, anxiety. I kept catching viruses until my doctor gave me some tough love. You're getting sick because you're biting your nails. You're basically eating germs. That was my wake-up call, because ew, and it finally broke the habit. Keep nails short so dirt and germs don't build up. I know this is hard, but try your best. A simple rule like when and then. When you wash your hands, then you can eat your snack. When I'm done cutting your fingernails, you can go and play. Make it part of the daily rhythm. Shoes off inside is another easy win. If you knew what's on the bottom of shoes, you'd never let them near your floors again. We're talking bacteria, allergens, and who knows what else is hitching a ride into your living room. During sick season, give high-touch spots some extra love. Remotes, doorknobs, sink handles, lunchboxes. You don't need to bleach the house daily, but think of it as keeping the germ party from getting too wild. Don't skimp on sleep, because sleep is like plugging in your immune battery overnight. That means consistent bedtimes, a calming wind-down routine, and no screens right before bed so their brains aren't still at a cartoon rave when they should be powering down. And if you didn't know this is important for you too. If you have a sick kid and are feeling healthy, ditch the late-night scroll sessions unless it's watching my videos to help you out, and sleep. Sleep is healing and can help support your immune system. And also, normalize staying home when sick. Viral shedding can happen even after kids feel better, so letting them rest protects them and the whole community. Think of it as sending fewer parting gifts in the form of germs to friends and classmates. My rule is that if your child has a fever or has had any fever-reducing medicines in the last 24 hours, they should stay home. And the other reason is if they're not at baseline, they're cranky, they're irritable, they're not eating. That shows you that their virus is still under control, likely with a higher viral load, likely more likely to be contagious. So keep them home when you can. And since fever is one of the top reasons parents panic, remember fever alone isn't dangerous. It's a sign the immune system is doing its job. What matters most is how your child looks and acts, not just the number on the thermometer. If you're unsure what to do or when to call the doctor, check out my other fever videos where I walk you through exactly what to watch for. Here are a few more ways families can reduce those pesky viruses and illnesses at home. Outdoor time and physical activity. Vitamin D from sun exposure and regular exercise both support healthy immune function. I always take my kids outside to the park, no playdates or equipment, just outside, and nature and even the beach if you have access to one. Hello, natural saline or salt water. This can help not only reduce the illnesses, but help them when they're sick with a cough and cold. Reduce smoke and allergen exposure at home. Secondhand smoke and unchecked allergies can inflame airways, making kids more vulnerable to infections or prolonging recovery. Vaccines. A reminder that vaccines don't prevent every virus, but they dramatically cut down severe illnesses like flu, whooping cough, and pneumonia, which is a huge win for helping keep kids out of that revolving door of being wiped out. Saline. I am saline obsessed. When my kids are sick with a cough and cold, I will definitely use saline, but if their nostrils are feeling dry, I also use saline because having moist airways can reduce the risk of viruses entering the nostrils and replicating on a dry mucous membrane. Parental modeling. Kids mimic what they see. If they watch you wash your hands, stay home when you're sick, and rest, they're more likely to follow suit. Verbalize that. Mommy's not feeling good. I'm going to rest. When you go to sleep, mommy's going to sleep, so that they know the importance of rest. When you're drinking water when you're sick, mommy is drinking water because when I'm not feeling good, it helps me feel better. When they hear that, it becomes their narrative as well. And remember, if you're finding these tips helpful, go ahead and subscribe now so you'll have my next set of health hacks ready before the next bug makes its rounds. Let's clear the air on some things that sound like they should work but don't. Over-supplementing doesn't block viruses any more than wearing sunglasses at night. More vitamins won't suddenly turn your child into a germ-proof superhero. Over-sterilizing your home isn't the solution either. Kids need some germ exposure to train their immune system. So if there's a virus that has entered your house, I highly suggest disinfecting high-touch surfaces, but don't go into panic mode every day cleaning every surface if everyone's healthy. And fear-based parenting, where you try to avoid germs completely, isn't realistic unless you plan to live in a bubble. If you want to try vitamin C, zinc, or elderberry, know the research in kids is limited and mixed. I have a great YouTube video on the pros and cons of immune supplements. I get asked all the time, Dr. Mona, how do you get over the fear of play gyms and other germy places? They give me the ick. Here's the truth. I know kids are going to get sick. And whether it's from school or a play gym or a friend's house, it's going to happen. I use what I call my risk barometer. If we have something important coming up, I'll keep my kids in the necessary activities and hold off on the extras to minimize germ spread. I always prioritize outdoor activities over indoor ones, since there's less germ transmission outside. And of course, we're really consistent about hand washing. Does illness still happen? Of course, but this approach has helped reduce the frequency of it happening. Now, how cautious you are may depend on your family's baseline health. When I had a newborn, I was a lot more careful than I am now with a toddler. And some families may have someone at higher risk, which means making different choices, and that's okay. What we can all do is help each other out by staying home or laying low when we're actually ill, since that's when germs spread the fastest. Here's how I think about it. Normalize exposure. Play gyms, playgrounds, and kid hangouts are germy, but avoiding them altogether doesn't prevent illness long term, it just delays it. Kids will need those exposures for immune training and social development. Reframe the fear. Instead of germ factory, think immune system workout. Every sniffle is one more practice round that makes the immune system sharper. This doesn't mean actively being around people who you know are sick. It just means having that perspective to know that if illness happens, you can manage it. Smart strategies. Wash hands before eating, after leaving the play gym, and change out of play clothes when you get home if it helps you mentally. Perspective. Avoiding germs completely would also mean missing out on play, social skills, and development, all just as important to health as avoiding illness. And here's my favorite reframe. Yes, play gyms are sticky and gross, but so are kids. I know this firsthand because they cough in my face and rub snot on my sleeves in the office, and now as a mom too. And somehow they come out stronger on the other side, and so do we. So what's the takeaway after all this talk about germs, sneezes, and hand soap? I know you probably are cringing. Think of it like this. Germs are the personal trainers of your child's immune system. Annoying, sweaty, and sometimes showing up way too often, but ultimately making them stronger over time. Every virus is one more rep for the immune system. I don't want you forcing your kids to get sick, but reframe when they do. Their body is learning even though it's tough. Getting sick is part of how their body learns. If they're growing well, meeting milestones, and otherwise healthy, their immune system is just doing its job. Focus on consistency more than perfection. Build healthy habits into your family's routine because you're not failing if your kids get sick. You're parenting through it, and that's what actually counts. If you found this helpful, subscribe for more science-based parenting tips, personal parenting tips, and share this with a friend who's deep in the daycare or school germs trenches right now. I'll see you all next time. Stay well as much as you can.